Okay, this is the engine compartment of a really neat Ford Fairlane 66. This guy houses a real 427. I have no idea what this thing's making horsepower-wise. It's certainly substantial. They were basically they were 410 with a single 4-barrel, but they were certainly way beyond that. They were right around 500 real horsepower back then, and you add to that a little bit more camshaft that they had, a better intake system than Ford offered at that point in time. This has a single plane intake, which these engines just happen to absolutely love, a single intake plane system on it. It has a huge Holley double pump 4-barrel on it. It has the correct style for that era, the sharp edged valve pan covers that came with it in chrome. They weren't aluminum at that point in time. Has an MSD complete ignition system in it, the billet distributor, high silicon plug wires, coil, and an MSD box. Everything on this vehicle has been addressed. There's not one issue on this vehicle or one component that has not been addressed in one way or another. Dual stage master cylinder in the front of it here. Does not have power brakes. It does not have power steering. It doesn't need it either. It's a nice steering car. It works just fine the way it is. Optima battery. New solenoid in the front here. Aluminum. Oh, it's at least a 4-pass aluminum radiator with a huge electric fan on the back of it here, and also the correct shroud that would go with it that encompasses the entire aluminum radiator to help keep this guy cool. Correct style hoses top and bottom. A new fuel pump. You can see the engine is all fresh. Everything on this thing, nothing's been discolored yet. The headers are starting to turn a little bit blue. They are apparently a set of high ceramic chrome style exhaust headers on this. I'm going to call them about an inch and 7/8, about an inch and 7/8 header on this guy. Maybe a little bit bigger. It's hard to tell from looking up here. Chrome new alternator on it also. There's no leaks evident whatsoever on the valve pan covers or the intake system. On these FE motors, the head actually was part of the intake. The valve pan covers covered the portion of the intake manifolds, which became part of the head, part of the cylinder head, and then the head itself. So if there's any leaks, it would happen in the front here or back, of course, and there are absolutely none on this car, absolutely none. Semi-flat black inner fender panels, just the way it would be correct for the car. Everything in this engine compartment, look at this, even a Fomoco washer bag, the way it would have been back in the 60s. Fantastic condition car. I can't guess the horsepower of this car, but it is substantial. It's much over 5. I can tell you that for sure just from driving it. It's a fantastic piece of equipment. Fiberglass hood. These are all molded 2 pieces and then epoxy together. You have an underside that goes ahead and works as a ram air system for the intake on the car. The air cleaner mates up into that system, and then this is a functional scoop. So this thing is a functioning ram air system for the car. Dual horns in the front. The core support's never been disrupted whatsoever. A new rubber seal to make sure that the air goes through here. It does have a tranny cooler. It's a C6 automatic in this particular car, but it does have an auxiliary transmission oil cooler on it. Fantastic, fantastic engine compartment on a fantastic vehicle. We're going to go around the rest of it and show you what we can there. Hi, you're at Hanksters, Daytona Beach, Florida, and got a really neat guest today. Fantastic, fantastic car. 66 Ford Fairlane in a 427 R code style lookalike car. This thing is just as sweet and nice a vehicle as you'll ever find. I'm going to go over it and show you everything that we can point out on it. Fiberglass hood on this car. It is a fiberglass hood. And you'll notice on the fitment of this where the hood fits the fender and the cowl. The gap is good on the car. But if you look, it's just the same as an AAR CUDA or a TA Challenger. If you leave the springs on the hood to keep the hood up, whenever when you're showing someone the engine or working on the motor or whatever, the springs for this lightweight fiberglass hood are too strong. So Chrysler came out with a bulletin that you take the springs off of their cars, use a little piece of a prop rod or whatever to keep the hood up, and it does away with the curvature, because now if you notice on this hood, the hood is actually bowed up in the center right here. It's the highest point. It's about 1/4 of an inch high here. Fits nice here and fits nice here, but not in the center. If you get rid of these springs, put some weights on here, it'll put this back down where it belongs, and that's probably what we're going to do. And then if the individual that buys it decides he wants springs on it, he can bow the hood back up himself. Paint on this car is just absolutely fantastic. There's no imperfections that I can see whatsoever in it. The gap, again, is really nice on it. Fitment across the front with the aluminum trim, anodized aluminum. Hood needs adjusted anyway. Again, this side the same way. I'm going to show you again here. Where you can see in the center it's bowed up. This needs to have those springs taken off, which we are going to do. And we're going to put some weights on here. I just did an AAR and fixed it a couple weeks ago here. But the fitment itself, gap-wise, is really good on the car. And the paint across the front of it, on the hood, the fenders, everything is just as sweet as you'd ever want to find. Okay, grill area. This is all new. I mean, it is literally like the day it left the factory. All this anodized grill work across the front here. There's no marks, no chips, absolutely no nothing. This is a show quality vehicle. Trim around, your anodized trim around the headlight enclosures here, as nice as you'd hope to find. Let's check this one. Same way. There's no dents, no marks, nothing whatsoever. It's anodized aluminum. It's just as sweet as you'd ever want to find. Filler panel in the front. Nice and tight. Bumper fitment. Somebody spent some time on this guy. That's as nice as you'd ever hope to find. Still has a license plate bracket in the front, still affixed. Amber parking light lenses, nice and crystal clear. The chrome on the bumper is just exemplary. There's no marks whatsoever across the chrome here from someone putting their feet up on it. No stone chips or marks or any dingies whatsoever in the front of this bumper. The front end of this car is just exemplary. I mean, other than adjusting that hood and compensating for that curvature, which we are going to go ahead and address, there's absolutely nothing. This is a straight and nice and clean and R-style front end that you could ever hope to find. Let's go down to the driver's side. Okay, driver's side, Fairlane designation. There's no patina whatsoever on this Fairlane nomenclature here. Also, the trim down the side, look at that. Everything just as nice as can be. No dents whatsoever, absolutely none. 427 designation on the front, just original type, just the way it should be. Cannot be any nicer than that. All tin. Cowl to the door, to the front fender. Look at the fitment on this thing. I love it. Been really lucking out. A lot of these cars, 90% of them lately, we haven't had to really do anything other than maybe a little door adjustment or something. That's pretty much it. We have to do this hood, but that's no big deal. We'll take care of that. The correct wiper arms, argent blades. These should be polished stainless as the arms, but they're argent. They're a newer design blade from in the era, but not the way the car came. The trim around the front window is stainless, and there's no marks whatsoever on it. I don't feel a single ding or pimple or mark or anything on it. Complete padded dash in this car, and there are no cracks whatsoever in it. It's a blue interior in the car, nice contrast to the white outside. The dash where it transitions to the base of the windshield is as clean and clear as you could ever hope to find one. There's absolutely no deterioration, no dirt, nothing. It's just as though the car was made last week. It really looks good. Let's see, wing area. Trim down the sides. Correct style mirror. Ford mirror for that era. Crown of the door handle is absolutely beautiful. The side trim, there's not a mark, and I'm running my hand down it, and I can't feel a single deviation or a mark or a ding from another door. Absolutely none. Look at the door fitment to the rocker panel. Look, this is absolutely as nice as you could ever hope to find. It really is. Chrome on the door handle, just as nice as you'd ever hope. White whiskers, nice and resilient. The rubber on them is nice and fresh. Drip rail. No dings, no marks, no imperfections whatsoever. I can't feel a single thing. Roof, just as smooth as glass. No marks, no dinghies, nothing's fallen on it through the years. It's just totally as it was when it was new. Could not possibly be any better. The paint on this car is just exemplary. I know you can't see it, but the finish on this car is as fresh and clean and nice and deep as you could ever hope. Fantastic, fantastic paint job on this car. Okay, trim down the side of the quarter. Not a single dinghy, nothing. None. Absolutely none. Okay. All tin. There's no Bondo, nice sharp edges you can hear on the wheel lips and also on the drop downs in the quarter panels. Absolutely no issues whatsoever. Zero. That's the entire side of the car. From this point it looks like there are no doors on it. It looks like it's just straight as an arrow down the side of the car. A little bit of a curvature the way Ford did the design of these quarter panels to give it a little bit more room for the tires that they knew people were going to put on this vehicle. Has a little tiny bit of a curvature. Looks great. Nice design on Ford's part there. The correct style wheels that would have come on this car in that era, if this thing were a real R car, that's the wheel and tire combination that would have been released with this vehicle. It's a painted wheel with a dog dash type center. Fantastic looking combination. It gives it a real racer type look to it, being a two-door sedan, lightweight. It's a great looking car. I don't see any imperfections in it, other than the only thing I could find so far was that curvature in the hood, which we're going to address. That bothers the hell out of me when those hoods are curved that way. Let's go out back, see if we can find something there. Okay, the rear section of our R-style Fairlane. Wish you could see the paint on this car. The paint is just absolutely gorgeous. It is so silk smooth and nice that you can't see it, especially since it's a white car. But the finish on this car, it looks like it's a foot deep. It looks like it's wet all the time. Fantastic paint job. Whoever did this does a fantastic job on it. Trim around the back light. As you can see, there are no... Let me check it just to make sure. No marks on this side. Same here. I don't feel a single imperfection. If I run my hands around this stuff, I can tell if there's a little tiny divot or a little imperfection that you may not even see, but I can feel it. And there's absolutely none there. New hat shelf, rack, tray in the back. Really just as nice as you'd ever want. It has the type of vinyl finish on it that came from the factory. The seat fitment toward the back is also just as nice and clean as you'd hope to find. Ford designation on the back. Trim around the tail lights. And lenses themselves just as sweet as it was in the front there. The anodized aluminum around the tail lights are nice and clean. And the lenses are crystal clear. They're actually shiny yet. They're actually shiny. The bumper fitment in the back. Across the back. That is really, really a nice bumper fitment. It's height-wise, it's right on the money. And laterally, it's as nice as you're going to find. Set of slash-cut stainless-tipped exhaust coming out just about to the edge of the bumper. Kind of hiding underneath there, but they're there. Look like about a 2.5-inch pipe. There are no marks on the chrome itself on the back bumper. Again, the front didn't have any, nor does the back from anyone scuffing it through the years. It's just as new and fresh as you'd ever hope to find. There's no marks on the back of the bumper from it being backed into or driven into or chipped or marked or anything through the years. It's just as straight a back end as you could ever hope to find. We got one more side to do yet. Okay, last side, our passenger side. You know what, I'm going to do the trim first because it's so long on this quarter panel. Thought that was a mark. It wasn't. It was a little piece of dirt. There's not a single imperfection on the side of this trim piece going down the sides. The paint on this car, I keep emphasizing the paint, but you'd have to see this paint to appreciate how nice it is. Wow. Sail panel, the roof, everything on this car is just as sweet as you could ever hope to find, ever. Drip rail, no marks whatsoever, absolutely none. Wipes, whiskers on this side, same as the other side, no mirror. If someone buys it and wants a mirror on the right hand side, which I really need to drive, we'll install one for them. Chrome on the door handle, just as fresh as it was when it was new. Look at the gap. Look. To the rocker panel, to the quarter panel, look at this. That's just insane. It's just absolutely phenomenal. Trim on the door. Absolutely no imperfections at all. None. To the front fender, to the door. The fitment of this car is just totally amazing. Both doors, the deck, the columns. William, we have to address is that. Front fender. Fairlane 427 designation with the correct style flags on it. And we're back where we started. This is an absolute phenomenal car. It is not a correct car. We're not going to price it accordingly. We are going to price it accordingly. If this guy were a correct car, I think the last one I watched did $225, a real R car for 67. This particular vehicle, and it was a twin to this too. You can check it. It was an Amicum sale. It was a white car with the same thing as this. It just looked exactly the same. Everything on this car, the fitment, the finish, the trim, everything is spot on. It could not possibly be any better. The vehicle is a very rare style vehicle. It takes a certain person to buy this kind of vehicle. It's a tribute car. But it's also going to be priced accordingly. This is a car that you're going to be able to buy for 50 grand instead of 250 grand. It's a fantastic condition car, and it runs just like the real one would. It's a fantastic car. We encourage everybody to come down and look at them and drive them and go over them in person, but that's why Devin and I do these videos. We try to point out every little thing that we can, and it's for our benefit too. We try to show ourselves, okay, we have to fix this, or we have to fix that, or we have to take those springs off and make that hood fit a little bit better, put a couple 50-pound sacks on each side, sandbags, so that it pushes it back down where it's supposed to be. And that's all that it takes to do that too. I just did one in an AAR CUDA here a few weeks ago. It's a great car, and would love to show it to you in person. It's a car that if you saw it in person, you're going to be more impressed than you are just watching the video, because the fit and finish and amenities of this vehicle far surpass what we can show you on a video. But it's available here at Hanksters, and however you want to do it, whether you want us to show you more pictures, Devin's going to show you about 90 still photos of this vehicle. And I know we're going to have to be up to about a 35-minute at least presentation on this with our drive and undercarriage. So you're going to have a lot of information on your purchase of this vehicle here at Hanksters. Take a look at it. Just a really rare bird here. Okay, we're in our Fairlane R-style car, 427, a real 427. This guy definitely is very unique. Nice plain two-door sedan, but everything is done to the nth degree. Headliner just as tight as can possibly be. The original style padded sun visors, just like they were when they were new. Dome light functioning as it should. Steering wheel has no cracks on it. It's also painted blue to match the interior. The horn ring that blows in the center is just as fresh and nice a chrome as you'd hope to find. Ford emblem in the center. Column shift. The Prindle is real nice and clean on it. Dash itself, the plastic lens over the dashboard is just as nice as you'd hope to find. It's radio delete. There is no radio, but guess what? Yes, there is. Look here. There's a CD player in the glove compartment, so if you're into music, you got some. It has a tachometer in it, an oil pressure gauge, and a water temperature gauge. A supplemental gauge system underneath it. All the dash components, all your switches, everything are just as nice and clean as you'd ever hope to find in any vehicle. Brake release, a nice shiny dimmer switch yet. The mirror is the original equipment mirror. There's no milkiness whatsoever on it. It's just a basic mirror, not day-night. Oh my goodness, let's go over. It has seat belts in the back and seat belts in the front. The upholstery is the correct style cloth and vinyl interior that would have come in this car in 1966. It has trash trays in the back and armrests in the back. How about that? And you got a trash tray up front here. The window cranks in the back and the window cranks in the front are all new. The chrome is absolutely spotless on them. It has the original molded style armrests front and back on this vehicle. The door actuators again are just as new as the window cranks. Everything's been addressed. Has loop pile carpeting in it as opposed to cut pile. A set of Fairlane mats designating Fairlane in white to match the outside of the car. A nice contrast on this car. It really looks good. Floor mats in the back also. How about that? This car is just over the top nice. You can't. All the rubbers are new in it everywhere. Everything is new and fresh. Inside the doors, which Devin will show you, is just as clean and fresh as you'd ever hope to find. This car is just as fresh as it was when it was new. I don't see anything on it that even shows anywhere, even a little tiny bit of wear. Everything, the seats are nicely padded. There's nothing. This car is as fresh a vehicle as you could ever hope to find. It has a heck of a powertrain in it. It's set up to look like a street racer with the dog dishes and white painted wheels on it, the way it would have come in 1966 or 67 for that matter. It's a fantastic piece of American racing history as a tribute, and it's available here at Hanksters in Daytona Beach, Florida. Okay, here we go in our 66 Fairlane. Automatic on the column, just where it should be. Fuel gauge, just a hair over a quarter of a tank, which is a lot of fuel for us down here. It's not that we don't want to fill these cars up. The reason we always have them on the low side is because in shipment, there's not a shipping company that will accept anything that shows a quarter of a tank or more. So it always has to be less than a quarter of a tank whenever we ship the vehicle. So we try to keep it right around that area. It has nothing to do with filling the tank. It's just we can't for shipment. It's just not acceptable. Turn signal left, functioning as it should. The right one doing the same thing. Speedometer, I'm sure, is going to work in this car. Horn's working just like it should. Let's see, wipers, that's the headlights. Let's try wipers. Wipers just working away out there. Tachometer still functions as it should. Oil pressure holding nice and high. We just started it. Temperature just starting to come up to operating temperature. Radio delete, but I think I showed, maybe I didn't. Check this out. There's a radio in the glove box. So you have a CD player in the glove box. There's your four-way flashers also that Ford incorporated into the glove box back in that era. Okay. Cigarette lighter's missing, but no one uses them anymore anyway. Alright, we'll wait till the traffic cools off a little bit here and go out and go for a ride, see how this baby runs. I never drove it. It's the first time actually I sat in the car, other than whenever Devin and I just did the video presentation. First time I've sat in this car. It's just the way we got it delivered. It's unbelievable out here. I think it's about 120 right now, but it's going to warm up the rest of the day here. Probably around 140 by the time this afternoon ends. But we still have to work under these inclement conditions out here in Daytona. So we're going to go for a ride. Alright, we're going down the road here. We'll see, let go of the steering wheel. Go straight as an arrow. Still no hands. Nice running car. Check the brakes. Try the brakes, no hands. Guy coming up on me, but it doesn't matter. Squirt here for you. Nice running car. Lots of slot to it. Goes down the road straight as an arrow. Can't ask for it to go any straighter than that. Okay, we're underneath our 66 427 R-style Fairlane. What a neat car this thing is. Everything has been addressed on this car. I mean, absolutely every aspect has been attended to. It's even got scoops on the front of the dust covers for the disc brakes in the front, so that it gives it some cooling. It'll scoop in some cold air when it's moving forward to help cool the discs. Discs in the front, drums in the back, new calipers, new rotors, new ball joints, new tie rod ends, new sway bar link, new sway bar bushings, new bushings everywhere in the front end of this thing, new spindles on the front of it, new ball joints top. Pitman arm, new idler arm, new steering hardware, the steering link. No leaks whatsoever in the engine. You can see everything is fresh on this motor. Everything's been attended to. It has a high torque starter on it, also brand new. C6 Ford transmission. Absolutely everything fresh yet. Everything. It even has a billet aluminum cover on the diaphragm part of it there, the modulator part. No leaks on the tail shaft, no leaks on the transmission, no leaks on the bell housing area, and no leaks on the engine. You can see all that right now. That's not to say a year from now or 2 years from now you're not going to find some oil on the floor. It's a muscle car. It'll be there, trust me. Aluminum radiator in the front, you can see. Everything on the front end of this car has been attended to. There's not one aspect of the front suspension that has not been renovated in one way or another. The headers are high temp coated. They're like a chrome plating, but they are high temperature coating on the headers. 3-inch collector going into a full 2.5-inch pipe with an H crossover pipe on it. The torque box is in the front, absolutely undisrupted, just as fresh and clean as can possibly be. The subframes where they come back have subframe connectors on them. And I've never seen a set just like this before, but these are really high-end, and I'll show you why in a minute here. It does have a parking brake, which is hooked up and functional. New fuel line going toward the back. It appears to be, it could be stainless. Appears to be stainless steel. Floor pans themselves are original floor pans, and they have not been replaced. You can see all your pinch welds still evident. The floor pans where they transition onto the rocker panels, both sides. No dents where people have jacked this thing up through the years on the floor pans or the substructures themselves. The subframe connectors are kind of unique on this thing. They rectangular tubing. They obviously weld onto the very front of the front subframe. Go back. There's a transitional support across here for more structural rigidity. Then there's a seat channel that goes over the structural part of the floor pan and is welded to the floor pan. Then it drops down and goes back and is welded to the there's a section again cupped over it that welds to the back part where it starts at the subframe again for the rear. The floor pans, the torque boxes in the back, in front of the spring perches are just as fresh and clean as could be. There's no jack marks at all on this thing. I don't know how anybody jacked this thing up through the years. I'm sure they did, but there's no indication of it anywhere. They must have been extremely careful whenever they did it. They used a block of wood or an old piece of tire, rubber or something, so they didn't dent anything. Wish Mopar guys would do that. The structural pieces, again, for the floor pans are really, really fresh and clean. There's absolutely no marks at all on them, absolutely none. The 2.5-inch pipes transition into two Flowmaster mufflers, high volume Flowmaster mufflers. New U-joint in the front, the drive shaft's been out and balanced, you can see that. Balance washer on the back of it. New U-joint in the rear also. A pinion snubber also affixed to the rear with the rubber bumper up on top. Heim joint traction bars on the bottom of the leaf springs, which have a real nice curvature to them yet. And again, the torque boxes in front of your front of the spring perches are nice and solid and fresh, just the way they should be. These traction bars are a real kind of a unique system. You can adjust the length of these traction bars to pretty much tailor how much lift you want for the back end of this car. The shocks in the front are new. Also, the shocks in the rear still have the paper tags still on them. I think it looks like 2.5-inch pipes out the back. Also, these Flowmaster mufflers, the correct style hangers on them. Drum brakes in the back. You can see the parking brake cable still attached to them, the original parking brake assembly. The rear drums are a fin drum design. They're a real heavy-duty brake drum in the rear, and they are definitely finned cast iron. Fresh round of rubber on it, front and back. Subframes where they transition up over the rear differential is just as fresh and clean as you'd ever find. 9-inch Ford rear end, and it definitely is a posi rear end. There's a lot of black marks out there to compensate to verify that it definitely has a posi rear end in it. The tank itself has no dents marks whatsoever in it. It's an original Ford style tank with the drain plug in it. Appears to have a new sending unit and fuel lines affixed to it. The floor pans in the rear of the trunk, just as nice and fresh as the rest of this car is. It's absolutely as new as you'll ever find. Rubber plugs still in the bottom of the drop downs in the quarter panels. There's no rust ever on this car. I can't see anything that's ever even been compromised in one way or another. Absolutely nothing. Subframes where they go back to the rear and transition across there where there's that structure that ties the two subframes together is just as clean and nice as you'd ever want to find. There's no pull marks at all on it anywhere. Well, I can't see a thing. This thing is just as new underneath. Red oxide primer, the way Ford used to paint these cars way back when. They're it's just, the whole car is just new underneath. You can tell the rear differential has been apart. There's a new seal on it. There's a new yoke on the front of it, and a new seal on it also. I don't see anything at all under here. There's no leaks whatsoever. There's no damage on the substructure in any way. Everything is new in this entire front end, including the brake system. There's absolutely nothing under this car that you could call a negative to. This is a very nice car, a very unusual car. It's structurally brand new, just the way it was in 1966, with a big upgrade for a performance engine in it. It's available here at Hanksters. Definitely take a look at it if you're into a muscle car Ford that would be a real rarity to have. This is your guy. Take a look at it.